made a wise choice today. You made a wise choice by being in the room where it happens. And I thank you for being in this room, because you're going to either hear some new ideas, or you're going to go over some ideas that you've known for a long time and maybe forgot a few things along the way. Either way, I hope you're going to grow. Now, as someone, I can tell you a little bit about growth. A, when I was younger, I grew this way. As I've gotten older, I've grown a few other things. Like the belly, more of a forehead, and ear hair. I'm hoping at some point in time, someone's going to figure out how we can create a cream that I can rub on my belly to get rid of my belly. Now, I see a few of you laughing about the forehead and the belly. I see you. In fact, I can see your foreheads quite well. At any rate, thank you very much for the warm reception. Coming from Scottsdale, it's a pleasure to be somewhere where I am not freezing. Last week, I spoke to the Iowa Soybean Association, and it was -8. And I survived, I think. But I think I caught a sinus infection while I was there. So before I get too deep into it, Tom needs to know what a Nittany lion is. So at Penn State, where the stadium is, where Beaver Stadium is, there's a mountain. The outside of that, and that mountain is called Mount Nittany. And it's named after an Indian princess that is believed buried in that mountain. And when the college was first created, 170 years ago, the mountain lions used to come down out of the mountains and into the city. And the locals would call them Nittany lions because they came down off of Mount Nittany. So that's what a Nittany lion is a mountain lion that hails from Mount Nittany in Pennsylvania. All right, now you know something new. Now we'll get on to a few other things here. The great jazzman, Louis Armstrong, said, if you don't toot your own horn, there is no music. You have to be the one that is willing to play the instrument. Because if you don't, who will? If you're not willing to stand up and speak out for what you know, you love, you care about, then who will? A few years back, I wrote a little pocket guide called The 7 Actions of Highly Effective Advocates. Now, I want to be clear. It's a little pocket guide. And there's a reason why I wrote a little pocket guide. Because statistically, according to the American Library Association, a person that picks up a nonfiction book does not get past page 50. I figured, why am I going to waste my time writing all those words when no one's going to read them anyhow? So I made a small pocket guide that fits under 50 pages. It provides valuable information on the 7 actions of highly effective advocates, and we're going to talk about that in detail today. But as we do that, I have a question for you. And that question is, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the word advocacy? What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the word advocacy? You would think it's a fairly straightforward question. I ask this question all the time in my podcasts, and I'll share something with you a little bit later in my presentation about that. But I want you to think about that, because it's the type of question that everybody answers differently. Now, what does advocacy mean in the first place? Advocacy is the act in favor of your issue, your cause, anything like that. It is the act in favor of. That's advocacy. And the reason why I say this is that's very much a positive word. But if we were to ask people on the street, what do you think of advocacy? Who knows what we would get from them? Back room, cigar filled, deals made, lobbyists, bad deals, you name it. But advocacy is a positive word. It's arguing in favor of. And that's vitally important that we remember that. Let me take you back to January of 1989, when President Ronald Reagan addressed the nation for the last time from the Oval Office behind the Resolute desk in the White House. I have an excerpt of that speech that I want you to hear. I want to make sure that our sound is going to be good on this, so stand by. All right, take a listen to this.
With politics, it wasn't my intention when I was young. But I was raised to believe you had to pay your way for the blessings bestowed on you. I was happy with my career in the entertainment world, but I ultimately went into politics because I wanted to protect something precious. Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with three real words: we, the people. We, the people, tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We, the people, are the driver. The government is the car, and we decide where it should go, and by what route, and how fast. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their priorities are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do. We, the people, are free.
We, the people, are the driver. The government is the car. There's a reason why he was pretty much known as a great communicator. Because you take that breakdown, how simple to what our role and responsibility are as citizens in the United States, for him to explain it that way. We're the driver. The government is the car. We hold the keys. We're the people in charge of our own government. We don't need government's permission to do things. The government needs the people's permission. Now, it might not seem that way all the time these days, but I believe that's something we should continue to strive for. We are the driver, the government is the car. So I know you just had a nice meal, and I don't want you to fall asleep on me. So I'd like you to please rise for 1 second if you can. And I have a chore for you all. And that chore is that I'd like you to repeat after me the 52 words of the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense.
Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for common defense.
Promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity.
Promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity.
Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Give yourself a round of applause and have a seat. Now, why do you know? Because I want it to be like an oath.
I'll be waiting.
I had you repeat after me like you would take an oath if you were in a court of law. Or if you became an elected official and have to take an oath. I wanted you to do that. Because the Constitution begins with those three words, we the people. It doesn't begin with I the king. or me, the president, or even we, the Congress. It begins with we, the people. This is our government. This is our responsibility. This is our role. This great experiment that we have in this country exists because we have a role in it. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, and the writer of the Declaration of Independence, has a great quote. Let me read it. We in America do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate. If you don't play, you're not in the game. If you don't vote, you don't have a say. Now, I know some people in this room have been elected before, and I will not put them on the spot, but I can guarantee that most elected officials, when you come in to see them, know whether or not you cast a ballot. There's only two ways elected officials get judged: by the money they raise and the votes they get. That's their jury. That's their job evaluation. And if you don't vote, then you don't have a say. You're not really in the game. Daniel Webster, a 19th century statesman and U.S. senator, said this: "It is the people's constitution, made for the people, by the people, and answerable to the people." Sounds somewhat similar to what Lincoln said at the end of his Gettysburg Address: "I'll buy it for the people." This was said 40 years before Lincoln said it. That it had to do with our Constitution. Let's take a look at our Bill of Rights. The U.S. wrote our Bill of Rights. To get the Constitution passed, we had to add a Bill of Rights of 10 rights, or the compromise would not have worked in the summer of 1787 in a steamy Philadelphia. Let's talk about the First Amendment. I'm sure most in this room will agree and believe in freedom of religion, freedom of speech. Those are part of the First Amendment. This is what Congress cannot do. They cannot establish a religion, cannot interfere with your choice of religion, cannot limit your free speech, limit your free press, limit your right to assemble, or limit your right to petition the government. Let's focus on that last one. Your right to petition the government. The actual verbiage, and I have to read this, says, petition the government for a redress of grievances. Redress, when used as a verb, is defined as to set right, to correct, to reform, to remedy, to relieve, to adjust evenly again. We constantly have that right to readjust our government. We not only have the right, I believe we have the obligation. It is in our first right, the important ones that we stand behind all the time: speech and religion. Dwight David Eisenhower said, "Politics ought to be the part-time profession for every citizen who would like to protect the rights and privileges of free people." Ought to be the part-time profession of every citizen who wants to protect the rights and privileges of free people. Why is that there? Why is this quote important? It's important because part-time. To me, we all get scared, and speakers particularly come up and tell people to change their lives. I'm not here to tell you to change your life. I'm here, let's make a little tweak. Let's make an adjustment. Let's do just a little bit more. Part-time. Your role and responsibility is part-time dealing with the government. This is what you do all the time. You cultivate and you grow. It is time for the organization to grow even more, even better, more influential advocates. Now listen, I know the people in this room. You're already leaders. You're already volunteers. You lead your counties. I know who I'm talking to today, so don't think I'm talking about you. Think I'm talking for you to go back to your county and to talk to your farmers that are part of your organization. Let's get them more involved. Let's get them more active. Let's get them to participate in more. Because if not, here's what we know for sure. There are always challenges ahead. And it's ever changing. It's like the weather. It's constant but changing all the time. With little influence, you have a low profile. Well, let's reverse that. With a low profile, you're going to have little influence. That is out there all the time. You're vulnerable to government legislation, regulation, policy decisions, and potentially media attacks. Now, in the rural part of the state, probably not that many media attacks. But you might, in the more populous areas of the state, get attacked. Simply out of ignorance. People that don't know and don't understand what you do and how you do it and why you do it so well. And so we're constantly concerned about challenges. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain. In fact, most of us do that well. But it takes a leader to praise, to pardon, and to protect. Praise the elected when they do the right thing. Pardon them when they make mistakes, because they will make mistakes. But you got to give them a second chance, or a third. And always, always do your best to protect your interest, your farm, your family, your industry, your association. I want to share with you, I know we have a few in the room, I want to share with you what a good lobbyist does. So, how many here can remember getting their driver's license and taking the driver's exam to get your license? Now most of you can. Let me show you what happened with my son got his driver's license.
I was driving at 9, 10.
He came to me and he said, "Dad, I want the car."
To ride on, you know.
What do you think the first thing I wanted to tell him? Yeah. You don't have any experience. You don't know what you're doing. You may wreck the thing. I don't want you to have the car. Now, how did I know that? Because maybe I wrecked the car when I was young and in that position. But that's the way I felt. So what's the first thing I want to do? I want to kill him. You're not getting the car. This is one of the things that a good lobbyist does. They help kill a bill that's dangerous to their industry. Now, what would happen if he came to me and he said, "Dad, you know Susie. I want to take Susie to church tonight." He's now amended it to make it acceptable. I can't tell him no now. He's found a way to change what the original ask was into something that's now acceptable to me. But what if I would have turned around and said to him, "Hey, you know Johnny. Johnny just got out of jail. I didn't hear anything else but Johnny in jail." Has he just made it unacceptable? So sometimes you find a way to add something to a bill to make it unacceptable because it's going to do more damage to you. And all along, whether it's the lobbyists moving the gears of politics and legislating and governing, or whether it's my son asking for the car, bless you, they're constantly pushing hot buttons. They're constantly, whoops, there it is, pushes hot buttons. 2-year-olds and teenagers are the best lobbyists in the world. They don't like to accept no for an answer. So if you have a teenager that's like that, tell them to go in the profession of lobbying and don't restrict them too much. Because they will find a way to continue to push hot buttons to make that difference. And what happens? What happens if I say, no, you're not getting in the car? I see people saying it, whispering. He goes to Mom. Mom doesn't want her car to go, so they form an alliance. And between the two of them, guess whose car leaves the driveway? Yeah, mine. Folks, this is what a good lobbyist does. Now, granted, I can spend hours talking technicalities with you of all the things that they do and how they do it. It's immaterial. They almost all come under one of these 5 categories. Almost all. But why am I sharing that with you? Because look, cross out lobbyists and put citizen in there. It's exactly what you do when you do grassroots advocacy. It's what you do when you go to the Capitol, like you're going to do next Tuesday when 500 of you show up for Farm Bureau Day in Atlanta. You're going to find ways to make sure that you're asking for the things that you want as a citizen, as a farmer citizen. You have that right to make that decision. And in fact, Harry Truman, if you haven't gotten a clue yet, I love quotes. Harry Truman said, would you be against lobbyists who are working for your program? Harry said, we probably wouldn't call those lobbyists. We'd call them citizens appearing in the public interest. You are the citizens that appear in the public interest of the farming industry. You are those citizens. They will like you when they're for you. They will support you. I asked this earlier. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of advocacy? I got a couple of responses. I ask this question on every episode of my podcast, somewhere in the podcast. I will ask this question. The first one, some of you may recognize the gentleman in the photo. That's Cody Lyon. He's the Director of Advocacy for the American Farm Bureau Federation. Here's what he has to say when he thinks of advocacy. And now, listen to Cody Lyon, Managing Director of Advocacy and Political Affairs Programs with the American Farm Bureau Federation. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of advocacy?
The very first thing is relationships, especially for successful advocacy. I can't think of any campaign, anything we've been involved with, whether it be a relationship with a lawmaker from my standpoint, or even be from a relationship with an advocate to a lawmaker, or even a relationship between an association, our staff and staff, or whoever it is, that you can't accomplish anything unless you've got a very solid relationship with someone. That just makes advocacy so much simpler.
Relationships. Now, if you were in Katie's session already, she talked about that. You've got to develop the relationships today. There's this political saying, it's too late to buy fire insurance when the fire truck's at the door. Don't wait until you have an emergency to create the relationships. Do it now. Here's one more. This is former U.S. Senator Mark Begich from Alaska. And we close this episode with Mark Begich, former U.S. Senator from Alaska.
Be passionate, remember your issue, keep your facts straight, and always lead with a smile, not with an angry attitude. I just say, first of all, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for getting people to be advocates. That's what makes this country what it is. But if you don't advocate for your cause, no one knows your cause of this. And I tell people that all the time. The first advocacy is vote. Second advocacy is go talk to your folks who are elected at every level, because you never know when some guy who's 26 years old and sitting on the Assembly might be a U.S. Senator.
Well, the reason why I played the last part of that, he said, you'll never know when there's a kid that's 26 years old sitting on the Anchorage City Assembly becomes a U.S. Senator. So the people that you know locally may become your assembly member. They may become your senator. They may become your congressperson. They may become the governor. Who knows? So what can you do? I'm not here to scare you. What we're going to talk about is simple. It's easy. But one thing I do want to point out is it is always the right time to do the right thing. It always is. So let's get into the 7 actions of highly effective advocates. The first of the 7 actions of highly effective advocates is you must believe. You must believe that you make a difference when you go talk to them. I got involved in politics when I was 13 years old. I was 6'2". I didn't look like a 13-year-old. At 13, I started walking door to door and working on campaigns, helping others get elected to positions. Gee, by 18, I had 5 years experience and I knew it all. So I decided at 18 to run for election. Wait a minute. Did I tell you I'm probably not the sharpest knife in the drawer? But at 18, I decided to run against a man who had been in office longer than I had been on this earth. He had been reelected 11 times, 2-year terms. He had spent 22 years in office, and I was 18. And I went out and raised all kind of money, $60. And I had enough money to buy cards. And I'd knock on the door, and I'd hand them the card, and I would tell them my age, and I would tell them that if you think that the youth of today are going to hell in a handbasket, look at me. I'm here looking you in the eye, telling you I want to be a part of the community. I want to make the community better. I want you to give me a chance. Prove that statement wrong. I want your vote. Out of over 3,000 votes cast, I won by 5. Did I believe I would win? No. So to say believe, no. But what I did believe was, what lessons will I learn and what good will it do me if I put the left foot in front of the right foot and knock on the next door? What will happen when I knock on the next door after that? What lessons will I learn? How much better will I be? And in the end, I won. I even got reelected 2 years later. And that's when I decided I didn't want to be in politics anymore as an elected official. And so I chose not to ever run again. The first action is that you must believe. That's the first of the 7 actions of highly effective advocates. The second is be informed. Again, I know who I'm talking to. You're informed. You know what's going on. You've been in the breakout sessions today and you're learning more. You're getting together. And because you're active and because of the role you play, you're informed. But if there are things that you don't know, go to get the answer where you need to get the answer. Don't be afraid to ask others and do some research on your own. It's vitally important that you know what's happening in your organization, both at the state level as well as at the federal level. The third action of highly effective advocates is don't be afraid to discuss the issues. Don't be afraid to talk to your neighbors about things. This is not religion, and this really isn't politics. This is about governing. It's about doing what's right for the community around you. And so you, as the county leaders, make sure that you discuss this stuff with the farmers in your county. Make sure that you're reaching out to them. Make sure that they understand all of this. The fourth action of 7 actions of highly effective advocates is get on the record. Don't be afraid to speak out, and don't be afraid to share your story. Now, there are 3 parts of a good story. You want to ask them, what do you want your audience to know? So if you're in front of an elected official, what do you want to know? What do you want them to know? How do you want them to feel? So how can you put it into a context that they understand? Well, gee, if this happens, there will be 15% less farm land, and that means we're going to be able to feed X percentage less people. How would you feel if you didn't have food on your table? Put it back into their hands. And what do you want them to do? People fail to ask what you want them to do. Be real clear about it. I would like you to support this, or I don't want you to support this because it hurts our industry. Whatever it is, be really clear. These people know about this much about everything out there. You, in turn, know this much about your business. You know more than they do. Now, don't rub it in your face, but you know more. So be confident with your ask. Write. Letter to the editor, an op-ed piece, or get on the air. I know your PR communications team here will help you, along with the advocacy team, with any talking points that you may need to make sure that you're getting the word out. Number 5, be a resource. This may be the most important one for this group in this room. Be a resource. Go to your elected officials and tell them, listen, I represent a county in which you're elected. I'm here as your resource for anything to do with issues related to farming. Call me. Count on me. You have a question about anything, you let me know. And if I don't know the answer, I'll get you the answer. But you can trust that I will be there for you anytime you need those answers. You now create a really deep relationship because you're helping them do their job. Because they can't do it all. There's not enough time in the day to do it all. The 6th and the 7th is volunteer. I'm not going to say anything other than volunteer. You do. But now go back and get other people in your county to volunteer and to participate. That's the 6th action of highly effective advocates. The 7th one, contribute. Now, oftentimes it's contributing time. You're volunteering, you're already doing that. But in the case here, you just rolled out your PAC, the Impact Fund. So the state and local PAC, it's vitally important that you participate in that at some level. A, because what that does is that helps the elected official know you understand what they have to go through. And creating any type of an understanding between the two parties creates a deeper relationship. Hey, here's a bonus one. I don't count it because it's the most important one. You got it. You just have to. That's that simple. And this, you can't even see it too well on here, but believe it or not, there are 538 elected officials in this country. 538,000 elected officials in this country. Washington wants you to believe they're really important. Between the president, the vice president, Senate, and the House, that's 537, period. That's not even, what is it, 1/10 of 10,000%. When you go down 529,000, you can't see it in here too well, 529,000 are elected at the local level. 529,000. Those are your neighbors. Those are the people you know. Those are the people you care about. Margaret Mead, cultural American anthropologist, said, "Never doubt that a small group of citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing it ever has." So if I now take you back to where we began when we were talking about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence was signed by 57 people. That's a small group of people that changed absolutely everything in this country. You hold the keys. This is your government. You're the driver. You're the person in charge. To succeed in advocacy, you need to have 3 bones. Just 3 bones, not a full skeleton, just 3 bones. You have to have a wishbone. Because no matter how hard you work, you hope and pray and wish that what you're asking for will come to fruition. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you have to have a strong backbone to stand up for what you believe in and to stay the course. And the third one and most important one is you've got to have a funny bone. Because we only know they will say some of the craziest things when you meet with them, and you just have to laugh and brush it off. You need 3 bones. You need a wishbone, a backbone, and a funny bone. What will you do? I know what you folks do. You do it already. Here are the 7 actions again. Believe. Be informed, discuss the issues, get on the record, be a resource, volunteer, contribute. Oh wait, you're the choir. I spent all this time talking to the choir. Well, guess what? To be a good choir, first of all, you have to go to choir practice. So you're at choir practice. The second thing you have to do is you have to pick up the hymnal, you have to turn to the right hymn, and you have to practice, practice, practice. That's what creates a good choir. But guess what happens once you create that good choir? Somehow some people leave, some things change, some things medically keep people from doing what they say they would do. So you are constantly in need of growing the choir. And besides, the more trained voices that are in the choir, the stronger the choir is. So your job is to go recruit more choir members. It's your responsibility. Because I want to ask one more question. Ask yourself this. If not me, who? If not now, when? Ladies and gentlemen, you have the ability to control your own future and your own fate. The ancient Rome, Latin, Vox Populi, voice of the people. You are the voice of the farming industry. You're the voice of the farmer. You make a difference. You're in this room for a reason. I wish you much success. I thank you for your time and attention. And best wishes in